Thanks for tuning in to SkyTower Weather NOW. I'm meteorologist Jim Weber, and today we're talking about a lot more cloud cover. We've enjoyed some pretty nice looking weather over the past several days. Remember, earlier on we had that lower humidity, a little bit cooler for a time there. At least it felt comfortable. Now that humidity is starting to come up, but then at least we had the sunny skies. Today, the clouds have all worked their way in, and you look at SkyTower radar, especially to our south, we're seeing a little bit of activity, but it's just these little light showers and some sprinkles around that have just started throughout the afternoon. But look outside right now, and this is just a common view everywhere you go across the area. Just the very gloomy looking skies with all the overcast conditions that we have going on right now, and also held those temperatures down a little bit as well. Yesterday we were into the mid 80s, and we're slowly working our way into the 80s right now, but it's holding those temperatures back a little bit, just simply because of all the thick cloud cover. And also the other thing you'll notice is when we have a lot of clouds, you typically don't see big ranges in those temperatures. You're not going to see cooler temperatures along the coast and hotter temperatures inland. Everybody's going to be really within pretty much a few degrees of each other. And look down in the St. Petersburg, calm conditions, but all the overcast skies, 75 degrees. And then pushing down into Sarasota, this is right near the airport in Sarasota and Talavast, and look there on the edge of the screen. You look down in both of the corners, left corner, right corner, you see what that is? That's a couple of raindrops. So we are seeing a few light showers down to our south, and that's going to be the trend as we go through the afternoon, because you see what's going on. We just have a lot of this moisture streaming up from the south right now in that south and southwesterly direction, and just pushing all this up in our direction. So most of it is cloud cover, but there are a few little light showers mixed in there as well, and that's what we're going to continue to see as we go through really the rest of the afternoon. Let's take a look at where we have some of the rain right now. Put it in the motion, and you can see how it's sliding up from the south and the southwest, pushing on towards the northeast right now. And we've had some light shower activity up into Manatee County, into Sarasota County, right along I-75, especially as you move through Manatee County. It's just that light rain that is passing through there right now, right where I-75 and 275 come together. That's where you start to see some of that sitting basically just to the south of that point. Let's highlight the area that we're talking about right there. So notice as you go south of that, that's where you have that lighter rain. As you move over the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, you get out of some of that rain, and then you do have some breaks into Sarasota County right now. And again, most of this is just that very light rain that is working its way through, and it's all sliding in that basic direction, sliding on towards the north in the east right now. Let's go out wide once again, and you see as you work your way over into, say, Highlands County, we are seeing maybe a little bit of moderate rain mixing in there at times as well. Zoom into this area, you do see some of those yellows in there, so along 27 and 17, and then just to the north of 98, passing right through central Highlands County. That's where we've seen a little bit more rain. Maybe we're getting a few hundredths of an inch of rain, but still, it's not going to add up to a whole lot in these areas. Go out wide once again, and you notice once you get north of that, it's been all the cloudy skies. We just haven't had the rain. Remember, in those mid-levels of the atmosphere, we still have some of this dry air, so it's taking some time to moisten this atmosphere up. That's where you're just not seeing as much of the activity as you head to the north, but you're certainly seeing more of this as you head down to the south, over towards the other coastline as well. You're seeing some of that moisture pushing over in that direction. So a lot of this is going to shift on towards the east as we head into the evening hours and into tomorrow. But over the past 24 hours, get myself out of there so you can see this big 18-hour chart where we're looking at these temperatures that just didn't really cool down all that much through the overnight hours. And that's as those clouds work their way in through the overnights, it acts like a blanket. And so what we had was those temperatures just didn't fall as much through the overnight hours. During the day, it insulates us from the sun, and so you don't see those temperatures going up as high. So we've only been up to about 80 degrees so far, and that's because of those thick clouds shielding us from the sun. So right now here in Tampa, we're sitting at 78 degrees. Brandon 76, over in the St. Petersburg downtown 76 degrees. And remember I mentioned, you're not going to see a big change in those temperatures, especially in the areas where it's just cloud cover. So that's 78 here in Tampa. You look up towards Brooksville, and you have that 77 in that direction, right through there. But notice as you head down to the south, right through here, you are seeing those temperatures a little bit cooler. And that's because we have some of that rain, some of that light rain activity. It's helping to cool things down just a little bit. Not dramatic, but it is a little cooler than that 78 that we have here in Tampa. You have those lower 70s down across the southern part of our viewing area, right where we're seeing those thicker clouds and a little bit of that shower activity that is working its way through. Around the rest of the state, you head down to our south, we are seeing a bit more sun down towards Miami, down towards the Keys as well. There's still plenty of clouds, but you're getting a few more breaks in there, and so that's why you're seeing those temperatures ever so slightly warmer, but still, even that, you notice we're 78 here in Tampa. You're only 80 degrees down all the way into Key West, and then across the northern part of the state, you're seeing not any big changes. Now, earlier on in the week, we had still that pretty dry air in place, so the humidity still felt pretty low, felt pretty comfortable. Not to say that it's bad right now, but we're starting to see those numbers heading up a little bit higher. Certainly down across the southern end of the state, down towards Miami, you got that 69, and then those 70s down across Key West. And what that shows you, that moisture has just been pushed to the south. It hasn't gone much very far to our south. It's just sitting down towards the Keys right now. So we're still holding in those lower 60s. It's still comfortable, but we're going to start to bring more of this moisture back as we go through the next several days. In fact, you look at this, and that shows you as we head towards the weekend, we're into the mid and upper 60s, pushing close to 70 for that dew point. That's where you're starting to notice it really feels pretty humid out there. But then look, you see what's going on there? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's that big change that we've been talking so much about for the past several days. That major cold front that is heading in our direction. It's going to give us a little bit of rain, but the big thing is it's going to bring us some cooler air, some much cooler air, and some substantially drier air as well. Notice that by Tuesday, we're down at the bottom of that chart. That's not a mistake. That is just how dry that air is. 20s and 30s for that dew point. So that's that very crisp air that's going to be working its way down over us as we get into the first part of next week. So I know we're early on in the season. We can say it, can't we? It's going to be the coldest weather of the season as that front works its way through. And it's not going to be freezing weather, but it is going to be a really big change for us as we head into next week. And you will certainly notice that front as it moves through. It's going to be windy, and those temperatures are going to struggle to warm up as we head into Monday. And then Monday night, those temperatures are going to drop like a rock. So here's the view over the state right now. You see all the cloudy skies as you head over towards, say, Panama City, over towards Pensacola. Those are the areas that are probably seeing a little bit more sun over in those directions right over here. And you see maybe a few breaks down across the southern end of the state. We had a little bit of sun, it looks like, for a time up towards, say, Gainesville. You can see beginning part of the loop there. But now more of those clouds are just continuing to filter in over the state. We've got this front sitting to our north. That front, it's not heading in our direction, but boy, it was a busy day yesterday through last night as we had this big front that worked its way on through the northeast, and they had that strong wind pushing through there, and they still have a very chilly northwesterly wind pushing in some much colder air. They're now seeing those temperatures in the 50s, still seeing some of these winds gusting 20, 30 miles an hour up across the northeast as that big front has worked its way through, and they have a secondary front, but just pushing more of that cool air. And then you look up across Canada, look through here, you're starting to see more of that, that blue stuff there. That is snow that is starting to work its way across southern Canada. Some of this be pushing into the extreme northern part of the U.S. You see some of that falling up into extreme northern Minnesota. You're also seeing some of this in those higher elevations out into the Rockies. But what we're going to be watching is a developing trough across the eastern U.S., and that is going to just really just take all this cold air, which is sitting well to our north up towards Canada, and is just going to drive it basically straight on towards the south and the southeast, heading in our direction. But temperatures right now across the country, even though we're seeing more and more of these cold fronts, still nothing all that dramatic on the map. You're seeing those 40s and 50s up across the northern part of the country and across the northeast, but really pretty mild temperatures as you look across the south. So we've got the mild weather for us, but watch this as we head into the weekend and into next week. Here we are on Monday. This is at midnight, so basically Sunday night, and we still have the relatively mild conditions across the southeast. But look at what is going on right here. You've got all this cold air pulling up, and that is going to dive down across the east and the southeast and over us, and that's what's going to bring that Canadian air basically straight down into Florida as we head into the early part of next week. Here's another way of looking at this, that cold snap next week. Front is working its way through. You'll see some rain with that front. That will clear out. Monday, it's going to be an interesting day. Those temperatures are going to really struggle to warm up. In fact, we'll probably at times during the afternoon just start to see those temperatures slowly falling during the day. It's going to be windy. It's going to be chilly with those highs only in the 60s. Somewhat of a blustery day, at least by Florida standards. And then you wake up on Tuesday morning and look at this, 30s and 40s. Now, if this front was happening in January or February, we'd be talking about a pretty substantial freeze across Florida. But it's still too early on to see something like that, but definitely some of the coldest weather that we have seen in quite some time. You look at that graph there, that just shows you that big just drop off with those temperatures as we head into Tuesday into the lower 40s. We're going to be watching this because some of the models, you want to push this a little bit cooler here in Tampa. So we'll see how that trend goes over the next several days. That much drier air, that'll be heading in our direction as well. You saw that one graph which was showing those dew point numbers dropping down into the 20s. There's that very, very dry air pushing in our direction. In fact, here's the European model showing as we get into Tuesday morning, you see those widespread 20s for dew point numbers. So that's a substantial change that is heading in our direction. But for tonight, it's a mild night. We've got all the clouds around right now. We'll see these overnight lows into the 60s, way up towards Crystal River. May see those temperatures briefly dropping into the 50s. Then tomorrow, I do think we're going to get more sun around. We'll see some of these temperatures climbing back up towards the mid-80s as we head into tomorrow. 7-day forecast. Yeah, look at this. We're seeing these temperatures staying pretty mild over the next several days into the mid-80s. But then things just drop right off as we head into the first part of next week with that overnight low of 42. And notice that we stay in the mid-60s as we head into the first part of next week. We're talking tropics coming up in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to SkyTower Weather Now. 24 days left in the hurricane season. Remember, hurricane season goes until November 30th, so still have ways to go, but you know what? Things have certainly gotten much quieter, and there's really nothing coming along to suggest that we're going to start to see more and more activities. So you look at this, where we've been, and that all the way back at September 10th, at the peak of the season, and this was an interesting one. Back when we were at the peak of the season, it was crickets out there. But we certainly, somehow, we found a way that through the season, we started to rack up some of those numbers. And you see where we are right now, just right at the tail end there. Still a little bit more to go. So here's a look at the tracks where they've all gone this season. And really interesting to look at this because you can certainly tell that trend this year where a lot of these storms, it has been all about that curve back into the Atlantic around the big Atlantic ridge and the Bermuda High. And it's really been interesting for Bermuda this year as well because it's been an active season for them with many of these storms working their way up in that direction. But then you look across the Gulf, and other than Barry, it has been an extremely quiet year across the Gulf, and it was a very quiet year across the Gulf until we had Melissa, in that we had all that very warm water in place. Conditions eventually improved, and Melissa just became this monster storm. Absolutely amazing with that storm, and then devastating Jamaica just a week ago, just over a week ago. So things now, they're quiet. Here's the names that we've used this season. Still have some names unused there, but at this point, this may be all that she wrote for the season. You know, we'll keep our fingers crossed on that because there's still that possibility we could see something. It's not unheard of to have a November storm. We've had 13 named storms so far this year, 5 of those becoming hurricanes and 4 becoming major hurricanes. So you know what that really tells you right there, that this has, again, been a very interesting year, that we've either had a named storm as in a tropical storm, or we have essentially had a major hurricane. There really hasn't been a whole lot of in between because 4 of the 5 hurricanes becoming major hurricanes. So this has been somewhat of an all or nothing year with these hurricanes this season. So wide view over the tropical Atlantic basin, looking all the way through the Gulf into the Caribbean, out into the Atlantic. No tropical formation expected over the next 7 days. And you really see a big reason why. Not only the cooler temperatures, but across the Gulf, across the Western Atlantic, you're just seeing these large areas of shear. And you're starting to see more of that shear developing down across the Caribbean as well. So bottom line, we're really starting to see more and more areas just completely unfavorable for any kind of tropical development. But we have to keep ourselves vigilant because, as I mentioned a minute ago, November storms, they happen, not often, but this is what we've seen in Florida for November hurricanes. The one thing you do notice is when they tend to happen earlier on in November. So that's what we've seen with the 2 out of these 3 here, really earlier on. So we'll keep watch, but November 30th, it is fast approaching. We'll have more radar views coming up in just a couple of minutes. Thanks for sticking around with SkyTower Weather Now. Just looking at the month of November, our averages, we're starting to see some of these cooler temperatures work their way in. Average high for the month, 79 degrees. Average low, 61 degrees. It's also our driest month of the year, which is not good for us because we've really been fairly dry. We ended the rainy season actually below average, and since then, things have just gotten drier and drier. So we need that rain, but this is typically not a month where you expect to see much in the way of rain. Yeah, we got a couple of showers on SkyTower radar right now, but that is a couple of hundreds here or there. That is certainly not going to put a dent in any kind of drought. And over the next several days with this front working its way through, that's not going to bring any substantial rain. But November's an interesting month because we've seen a huge range in those temperatures. We've been all the way up to 92 degrees. You see that was back in 2015. We've been as cool as 23 degrees all the way back in 1970. Boy, that was a cold one, 23 degrees. So here's where we've been so far this month as far as those temperatures. Back and forth on these numbers. We had that cool day on Saturday. We did have that lower humidity, but we have not had any measurable rain. Now, we're still early on in the month, but we'll get some showers here and there, just not expecting to see much rain around as we head in through the next 7 days. So right now, here in Tampa with the cloud cover overhead, currently sitting at 78 degrees, 76 in Clearwater. You look down to our south, Manatee County in the Sarasota, you're seeing those temperatures into the lower 70s, stretching over into Highlands County with that 72 in Sebring. That's because we've got thick clouds around. We also have some of those light showers, which are currently sitting down to our south. Here it is on SkyTower radar. You can see the motion. It is all sliding from the Gulf, pushing on towards the north and the northeast right now. Over the past half hour, it's really started to thin out quite a bit. You look down to our south into Manatee and Sarasota County, and there's just some light rain that is passing through some of these areas, sliding on towards the east, over towards Wauchula, up towards Fort Meade, Frostproof, basically from Bartow to Lake Wales south. That's where you're seeing some of these showers right now. Maybe a little bit of some moderate rain mixing in, say, south and east of Sebring, over towards, say, to the east of Avon Park. All this into eastern, or I should say northern Highlands County, and all this is slowly sliding on towards the north right now. But overall, still in these areas, only going to pick up a few hundredths of an inch of rain at most. As you head into, say, southern Sarasota County, just some sporadic showers in those areas. So here's the view over the state. You see all these clouds and some of these showers that are working their way out of the Gulf. But overall, not a whole lot of moisture associated with this. But we're still on the mild side of this front, which is sitting to our north. That front is not heading in our direction. What we're going to see here as we head through the weekend, we stay with these mild temperatures around, but things are starting to change, where we're going to see this big developing trough across the eastern U.S. That low just drops straight down out of Canada, and that's going to help to just drive that cold air basically straight down out of Canada and push it in our direction, and that is that big change that heads our way for next week. So we've got the warm temperatures across the east and the southeast. As we head through the weekend, we stay with that, but here we are heading into Saturday. That front is dropping down. We're still mild. As we head into Monday, front pushing to our south. Cold air is spilling down, and that big change heading in our direction as we head into the first part of next week. Basically the coldest weather that we've seen in quite some time pushing in our direction. So for tonight, it's a mild night, low temperature down to 69 degrees. Then for tomorrow, we do get some more sun around, and that's going to allow those temperatures to warm back up into the mid-80s. 7-day forecast. We stay in the mid-80s as we head through the weekend. Cold front pushes through late Sunday night into Monday, and then those colder temperatures first part of next week. That's all the time we have for SkyTower Weather Now. Have a good afternoon.